This is kind of a relaxed impromptu show. I've had mostly interview shows over the past several weeks, and I had Dan Barker on the radio, I had Dan Batcheldor. Matt Dillahunty joined me, and those were great conversations, but we haven't had a whole lot of interaction from the listeners. And so this is going to be kind of an impromptu, unscripted, unthemed show where the listeners tell us what they want to talk about. Questions, comments, you want to vent, whatever's on your mind, and then, of course, whatever pops into my skull, and we'll just see what happens over the next hour or so. This is a radio podcast, but there is a Google Hangout video version. I will have that link in the description box of the show. And I'll start with Dan in our Google Hangout room. Dan, thanks for joining me. What's on your mind?
Thanks for having me. We actually met at the PA conference last year.
Yeah, great time in Pennsylvania. Great stuff.
It was my first conference. I had a lot of fun. I know you probably don't want to get necessarily too political, but it's we're in the middle of a lot of elections now, primary elections in the states here. This whole thing with on the conservative side, it's interesting to me because it feels like the evangelicals might be losing their grip on the party, and I don't know whether it's just because of Trump's personality and how well he's known, or whether this is I've sensed that maybe the social conservatives are losing their grip to the libertarian side, the ones who don't care as much about gay marriage and abortion, but they don't trust the federal government. I was just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Are you making the claim that the Republican Party is less religious or less evangelical?
I'm wondering if Trump, because Trump is bringing more voters out on the Republican side than they traditionally bring out. Their turnout's increasing. I'm hearing a lot of people, at least in my town, that are really excited about Trump and what he represents being outside the establishment. And I also think the fact that he's not hyper religious, I think he's pandering to him a little bit. But I don't think that he's, driving home Jesus the way that traditionally conservatives have done. So I don't know if this is something that in the future we should, think maybe the Republican Party is not going to be as religious as they have been, or whether this is just a one-off with Trump.
Well, I'm not an expert politically. I'll tell you what I think. I don't know that I can look at the Republican Party outside of Trump and say that they are drifting away from evangelicalism. I honestly see that most of the poster children for the religious right are, it's called the religious right for a reason. And the people who are, Trump himself has Sarah Palin in Tulsa, my hometown, just recently at the Mabee Center for a rally. And Palin is endorsing Trump, and Palin is uber religious, terrifyingly religious, Trump, I think, is an anomaly. For me, it is more of a cult of personality. I've talked to some Trump supporters. They're so fed up and they're so fearful with ISIS in the headlines, Al-Qaeda's making a comeback, all the uncertainty in the world, all these nations clashing against each other, all the uncertainty here, and the fact that they've seen so many attorneys and career politicians, one after the other, go into the presidency. Now they'll vote for almost anybody who looks strong and who would be different. They hate Hillary. They don't know anything about Sanders. And so now Trump's this guy who's like, oh, he's charismatic and we saw him on The Apprentice. He'll be great.
I think you make a good case that faith might be on the back burner for a lot of people. And because his personality is so strong, they jump to that. But I also think it opens the door to future candidates jumping in who also just kind of passively say things about Christianity, but aren't waving the Bible in everybody's faces, in that sense. But I guess it's just speculation.
Man. Well, it's something we'll be watching. I have a sinking feeling in my gut about the election. I don't want to be a total pill about it, but I look at, the candidates and I think to myself, every election season, the same types of promises are made, the same sort of scenarios play out. We have the rallies, we have the conventions, we have the pundits, we have the debates, we have all this stuff. And yet we still seem to be struggling with the same things we struggle with. We seem to be caught in the same mire that we've been in for many, many decades. And so I don't think we have a savior who's going to come in and rescue all of us.
It's a systematic problem, and it's hard to address. Like Bernie's idea of taking it over is great, but it's only if everybody buys into it and goes in for it. And otherwise, it's just promises that are going to let people down. So it's just hard.
There's a lot I like about Bernie Sanders. I occasionally get a little bit alarmed by the sort of evangelical nature of his fans and followers. And right now, there are people already who are preparing the email filled with hate and death, telling me how wrong I am and how they're just enthusiastic. And if that's the case, if it's just enthusiasm, I'm not talking about you. So you don't have to send me the email. I'm talking about the Bernie will save us all crowd. And there have been a few of those who are like, this is our one chance to solve everything. And I think that's a hugely simplistic way of looking at this monumentally broken problem. Even if Bernie Sanders is elected, what he is up against, what he faces, the obstacles he will have to overcome to implement these radical changes in the fundamentals of what the government has become. This 800-pound gorilla that's been out of its cage for so long. It's an admirable thing, but he's not going to show up and be Bernie Christ. And I think that's what I sort of resist a little bit. Let me try somebody else. I've got another Dan on the switchboard. Dan, thanks for waiting. What's going on, man?
Came on this podcast mainly to just say hi. I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about, except that I do want to kind of go a little off on your last caller, for lack of a better term. Yeah, I disagree with that. That the political process, and certainly the Republican Party, is getting, quote, less evangelical. To me, it's the whole polarization that's very disconcerting and scary. I'm definitely I'm a Democrat mainly by default, because no Republican that I've seen so far can let go of the social issues, the abortion issue, the gay rights, women's issues, and that really concerns me. When it comes to the whole Bernie versus Hillary thing, all I know, and I would encourage your listeners and anyone out there, as long as we vote blue, that's going to be the best for us, whether you're actually an atheist like I am, or just a secular mindset, progressive. Bernie or Hillary is better than any of, shall we say, that crowd.
I was looking at just some of the statements made by Ted Cruz in relation to his own run for the presidency, and he sees himself, and his wife recently made public comments to the same effect, that he's been appointed by God, which is something we've heard time and again with other candidates before they dropped out of the race. It's always telling to see someone who said, God wants me to run, God wants me to win, and then in 6 months they've disappeared. And no one questions why the divine will of God has been changed or sort of subverted in this way. I never really understood that, though.
Yeah, apparently Ben Carson must be waiting for the sign from God to leave, because he's not really part of the conversation. I don't know what he's doing in the race.
He's busy making up weird conspiracy theories about other stuff. Did you read the article about Carson, that his whole house is populated with portraits of himself, including one where he's standing in front of Jesus. So he's hanging with Jesus in this painting that's in his home. I think that says something about Carson. Anything else you wanted to add before I move on?
No, that was mainly it. I mean, keep up the great work. And thanks for having this hangout. And, see you around, Seth.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure.
Next time you come anywhere near my part of town.
This isn't a political show. I'm not a political expert. I'm like most people. I read the headlines. I watch the debates. I look at the talking points. I look at what people are running on or what they're running against. And I see this mob, this group of people who they're ignorant and fearful. And I used to be one of them. We're living in the end times. The whole world's going to hell. We need somebody strong. It was Palin who said recently at the rallies, including the one here in town, Trump's going to go and kick ISIS's ass, and everybody's starting to shout and scream. And I think to myself, it sounds good on on its surface, if you're part of that raw, binary good, evil, 1-0 AB, left, right kind of a thing. Yeah, like ISIS is a single entity in a single place that can be taken out with a single strategy, when essentially you're fighting against an ideology. You're fighting against something that is so incredibly complex. And in many ways, if you go in and just start carpet bombing everybody and everything, you create martyrs. And in many ways, you may actually be creating another vacuum, which another ISIS type organization might fill, and you've actually exacerbated the problem. You've created martyrs out of the enemy, and you've created another hole to be filled by the radicals, and yet there's no room for this kind of nuance in these conversations. So many people just want it to be simple. Bomb the shit out of them. America, right? They're waving the banner. Good versus evil. And let's wrap all this in an end times narrative, and then we'll just chest thump our way like this all the way to the election. It just makes me kind of crazy. Who else do I have on the switchboard? I've got Alan. I've got you on video. Looks like Alan. Do you have something to contribute to the show today?
Not really, Seth. Thanks. I just came home. I live in Shropshire in England. Just got home, saw your email, and I thought, I'll just see what you guys are talking about.
That was awesome. You're welcome to hang out and sort of.
I'm sorry, I hate to drag it back to Trump, but it's a perennial source of amusement over in this country.
I'd be curious to see what you think of us.
We have our own comic characters, I'm sure, but you probably don't get so much coverage over there on the British politics.
Well, the United States, admittedly, is, we're easy meat for people who are throwing stones. The USA. The truth is, there's a lot that I do love about my country, and there's a lot to be celebrated about the United States. But also, in many ways, I lament how I'm always reading international publications, and I'm seeing things like, their coverage of Trump. I was reading an article, I think, in The Guardian or The Independent about Ken Ham and the Ark encounter that's opening in July. I mean, they have to look at us and think, what's going on? What's wrong over there?
Yeah, I'm half Australian and half English, so I feel I have to apologise to you for Ken Ham and for Piers Morgan.
Well, Australia doesn't have to apologize for Ken Ham. Ken Ham should apologize for Ken Ham, for Pete's sake.
Yeah, that's right. There's a serious undertone to it. As November gets closer, if Trump was still in it, it has, the US presidency has a lot more effect on us in Europe than any one country's politics does on the United States, just by sheer weight of numbers and your foreign policy, because of your position on the world stage.
Can you help me understand something while I've got you here? Can we just talk, you and me? The royal family. Someone explain this to me. What do they do? What purpose do they serve? And do you think this institution should be preserved? What do you think?
I used to be. My mum and my grandparents were always great royalists. 1977, we were camped out in London waiting for the Silver Jubilee procession to go past. 25 years later, when it came around to the Golden Jubilee, I couldn't care less. One of my dearest wishes, actually, is that the old dear, who was 90 yesterday, actually, could outlive her son. And it could skip Prince Charles, because he is just the biggest waste of space. And the trouble is, his nutty opinions carry just because of being the firstborn of the reigning monarch.
I mean, can someone be born to be better than someone else? It's essentially the message that's being projected outward, is it not? If you're part of this family line, you're charmed.
Yeah, no, it is ridiculous. Yeah, the longer I live, the more ridiculous it seems.
I mean, is it the fairy tale? Is it that people like the prince and princesses? Is it a distraction? Do they watch the royal family like they might watch a soap opera?
I think they did a lot, especially when Charles and Diana got married. I think that was a big thing, and that it was the fairy tale princess thing then, and fairly rapidly, it all got tarnished very much.
Well, it's something that's always fascinated me. I think we've got more than our share of political snafus and things that we must apologize for to the rest of the world. But, I look at the royal family and I think, can we not use all that money, all that luxury, all of this, opulence? Can we not fund some sort of, programs for the homeless and hungry and cancer research? Can we not do something else with all that,
Yeah, I do agree entirely.
All right. Well, I appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for listening.
Back to the Trump thing.
Oh, go ahead.
If he were to be the Republican nominee, do you think that is more likely to guarantee a Democrat victory, whoever that is?
I had this conversation just a couple of days ago. He's so over the top. He's such a cartoon. He's such a caricature. If he does get the nomination, does it cause everyone else, even the fence sitters, even those who are, not necessarily fans of, I'm guessing it'll be Hillary, I don't know. Will they jump into that camp just to protect us? And I think that's highly likely. I think there are a lot of people who think, honestly, I have a hard time seeing Trump in the presidency long term. He is going from a position, a dictatorial position, where everyone does exactly what he wants, when he wants, why he wants. And he's going into a place where compromise is king. He's going to be able to get some things done by sheer force of will, just because he's the commander in chief. But a great many other things, he is accountable. He's going to have to rally Congress together. He's going to have to rally the American people together. He's going to have to operate within the letter of the law and the Constitution. He's going to have to play by rules. And I think it's going to drive him batshit crazy. He's going to hate it. And he's going to go on media. He's going to hold press conferences. He's going to whine and bitch and moan. And I don't know if he'll last 4 years.
I really think you're overestimating what he could get done by course of.
I'll just show up in a room with Putin. He'll love me. We'll get along great. It'll be amazing. All I have to do is be Donald. It's terrifying.
I got to see yes minister or yes prime minister, but everything is compromised. Nothing ever gets done. I'll tap out, but I'll just leave you with my son and I reckon that relax anyway. Trump can't win because the laws of the universe can't allow it.
You think
the cosmos into the Large Hadron Collider in a puff of smoke on it.
The cosmos won't allow this to happen. Thanks for the heads up. I appreciate it. I've got David. David, thanks for waiting. Did you have something to contribute to the broadcast today?
Just a point that you just brought up about how we have so many problems right now. We're so divided. But I was reading an article that was basically saying that, my niece's kids are going to be dealing with these moral issues that we can't even dream of right now. You start looking at genetic engineering, cloning, and stuff like that, and it's going to make what we've been arguing seem so minor.
You mean like a Gattaca type thing, where they're, the ethics of going in and modifying people?
Yeah, Gattaca's the movie, but where it all comes down to your genetic makeup, and that's how they decide who they mate with. There's no such thing as just natural mating. I love the movie. But, China's already admitted to doing some genetic engineering on human embryos. In Britain, one place got a go-ahead to do it, too, for fertility issues. But, there's just so many things that we're going to be facing in a couple generations that we can't even fathom right now.
On its surface, at least, though, it seems like something we definitely morally should pursue. If we could find at the genetic level a way to prevent cancer, the moral choice seems to do it, to pursue it, to take every step that we can. But I see what you're saying. What happens if and when the master race scenario becomes part of that conversation, when someone has, let's say, an inferior genetic template according to someone's measuring stick? Are they then going to be locked out of class or opportunity or a future that they might otherwise be able to enjoy?
No, yeah, we already see that today, when it comes to race and stuff. But when you can dig even deeper into someone's genome and try to oh, you're inferior because of this, and it's something that humans seem to love to do.
I was talking to Dawkins at Vancouver's event last summer. He was talking about machines. What happens when machines develop the processing power to become, agents of cognition? What happens when machines start to think? And he didn't think it out of the realm of possibility. I mean, our brains are essentially processing computers. What happens if and when a computer is created that can process so much that it becomes conscious? And then can you download a human mind or memory or personality into a machine? What happens then,
Stephen Hawking actually did an AMA on Reddit a little while ago about even a step before that, where basically all jobs get automated, where humans don't have to work anymore.
Oh, you're talking about robotics, though, here, like automation and was it Amazon? I saw an article a couple of days ago, actually it was a couple of weeks ago, about is it Amazon who's doing these, not the drones, not the flying drones, but they're doing land delivery using these little robots. They remind me of an 80s flick with Tom Selleck called Runaway, where they had these robots doing menial tasks for all the humans. And so essentially your delivery would happen. This thing will drive itself several blocks to your doorstep, and voila, there it is, be it a new pair of shoes or a pizza. It's a strange new world, my friend. Strange new world. Thanks for listening and watching today. I do appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you.
Okay, who have I missed? Have I talked to James yet? James with the Abide icon. One of my favorite films, James, by the way, is The Big Lebowski. So,
one of the things I need to broach with you is the Catholic Church here in Australia, and I beg your deference here. Right now we have Cardinal Pell, who has a I don't know how to word this. It seems like he has a wall that he can't surpass. We don't know what he knows, but we want to know what he knows. How do you feel about the Catholic Church as a whole, that can say we don't want to know about that, or we will not report against that, or really, for all of us who are non-theistic, how do we feel about that, and should we promulgate more against the people who say we don't want to talk about that?
Well, I think the Pell story is relatively fresh, but the controversy is not. Pell, the question about Cardinal Pell is, what did he know? How long did he know it? Of course, it was a week ago that we saw Pell give this deposition. He was still in Rome. He gave the deposition remotely for the Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse. Now, he's speaking about his former roommate, Father Gerald Risdale, who was later convicted on almost 140 counts of child abuse with over 50 different children. And here's the soundbite from Pell from the deposition that everybody's talking about.
I couldn't say that I ever knew that everyone knew. I knew a number of people did. I didn't know whether it was common knowledge or whether it wasn't. It's a sad story, and it wasn't of much interest to me.
What wasn't of much interest to you, Cardinal?
The suffering, of course, was real, and I very much regret that, but I had no reason to turn my mind to the extent of the evils that Ridsdale had perpetrated.
Well, look, I can't speak to the rule of law in Australia. I can't speak to whether or not he can be extradited. I can't speak to whether or not the Catholic Church will receive so much pressure that they'll finally decide they need to cash in their chips on Pell. I think that in many instances, churches regard themselves as above the institution of governmental law, because the church operates as an agent of God's law, which is the supreme law, and they can invoke this at will. And the Catholic Church is a prime example. We have our rules, therefore we don't require yours. We have our laws, we don't require yours. We have our punishment, we don't require yours. And I think the only way that changes is if they deal with backlash, not just from without, but from within, meaning the people who attend Catholic Church, the people who fund the Catholic Church, the people who enable the Catholic Church, the people sitting in the pews, the people who support it verbally, publicly, financially, whatever, get pissed off enough that they say enough. Once the money stops rolling in, once they stop getting the support and adulation, once they stop getting the deference, once people start walking away, then the church is going to have no other choice but to evolve and make some kind of a change to fix the sinking ship. But outside of that, I mean, what incentive do they have to change? They're almost a completely closed system.
Seth, don't you think it's similar to what we were saying even here with what's going on with Bernie, or even in England with what goes on with, the royalty? These are systematic things where it's not even a matter of, does most people agree that there's a problem? Yes. How do you fix it when it's something that's so traditional and so ingrained without some huge upheaval from people like somehow tearing these things down and rebuilding them or something?
I don't know. We'll see if anybody else has something they want to contribute. I myself think without overwhelming constant outrage to the point where it damages them financially and they begin to see that their monopoly on power is slipping and they're going to have to make a change. They're going to have to be forced into a corner. I don't know why they have any incentive to change, Paul, I got you on the switchboard. Thanks for being a part of the broadcast. What's going on?
Thanks, Seth. Continuing the conversation that we were already having, one of the things I think that ties in very similar to both the politics side and both the religion side is that both are so heavily dependent on popularity. When I see, whether it doesn't matter which party we're talking about, which religion we're talking about, everybody's willing to bend and change their points of view depending upon how many votes they get, how much attendance they get, how many people are sitting in the pews, and they keep adapting to that. I think that's one of the reasons why, the secular, the atheist community doesn't have as much pull, is because they're simply not as influenced. I mean, they're still influenced, but not as much by that. And they look for facts, and they look less on being emotionally swayed by something.
I think there's another element to it as well. I think that people are eager to defend the imperfections in their own in-group. When I speak to people who are part of the Catholic Church and people who are not part of the Catholic Church, and we address the same issue of child abuse by priests, the reactions from the in-group and the out-group are very, very different. I'm not saying that the in-group isn't upset about child abuse, but their default is to say, well, statistically, right? They'll go into that. Well, it's no worse than anybody else. There are lots of good people in the Catholic Church the Catholic Church does a lot of charitable work. Pope Francis is working to change. So they're immediately not talking about these specific demonstrable instances of abuse. They're talking about the good. They're deflecting away from the bad because they don't want to spend any time on that. Meanwhile, the opponent, the person who's not in the in-group, they're like, throw them all out, right? And I think we often are quick to defend imperfect, even ugliness in our own in-group because they are part of our identity, because they are part of our in-group. And, we've all seen people, if they saw somebody who was not on their family tree acting in an untoward way, they'll call them out and condemn them. But if it's a brother, sister, mother, father, child, then they'll start making the excuses and say, they had a troubled past. They're really good people on the inside. They start equivocating. It's because they're protecting part of their own in-group, I think, which speaks to their identity.
I certainly agree that it's a lot easier to see when someone else's group is being manipulated. When you see Trump supporters and you look at, well, gosh, those people are being so easily swayed by the simplest of things. Or when you see, maybe the Catholic Church or something like that, where they get, very forgiving of their own spiritual leaders. I can definitely see how, it's easy to see the fault in others. I guess that's
Catholic Church. It makes me crazy. The Catholic Church doesn't allow divorcees to take communion and says that non-heterosexuals are abusing human nature and says that condoms might actually make the AIDS crisis worse. And, I'd said in my book, Sacred Cows, that it only took 130 plus years for the Catholic Church to come around on the basics of Darwinian evolution, the fact of evolution. It's just, and what forced that change was a cultural shift, was pressure from the outside to finally acknowledge it. It must have pained John Paul greatly when he did it, but to acknowledge evolution, it only happened after the pressure of the science, the scientific community, and the belief of its own constituency forced them to say, we got to make a revision here. So maybe public pressure can do something in these lines as well. I appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.
I'm just babbling. Alyssa, nice to finally have a female represented. There's just too much testosterone in this room. What's going on?
Oh, not too much. I'm calling from Ireland, although I'm American myself, but I've been living here since 1998. So good Catholic country over here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Are you a product of the Catholic Church?
I'm not. No. I'm a product of a very relaxed Jewish upbringing. So relaxed it was nearly comatose.
Is it mostly a secular kind of Judaism? You've got a few of the traditions, but
no. I had a bat mitzvah and everything. Like when I was about 8, I said to my I knew we were Jewish by heritage, and I said to my mom, I want to know more of what it's about. Can we start going to synagogue? And she was like, oh God, do we have to? But yeah, no, they were very good. So they took me, and I was all about just I just wanted to know what it was about. But it was so reformed. Like our cantor was gay, and like it was just super casual atmosphere. And so I just had a super quick question. I'm wondering if you've ever been to Ireland. Aaron Ra I went to see him the last time he was here to speak, and he's actually coming again. I can't make it this time, but I just wanted to put in a pitch. If you ever have thought about crossing the Atlantic to come over here, I know there's a good group of people who would love to hear you speak.
Nobody in Ireland knows. I got you and maybe one other by accident. I can't imagine I have a huge following, listener following in Ireland of all places.
No, I wouldn't say that's true at all.
I would talk about that trip for the rest of my life. I think if I had the opportunity to go, I would certainly make every effort to try to do that. But I think Aaron made that trip as part of a multi-city, I think a multi-country tour. I think he put together a long string of dates in order to be able to make that financially viable. None of us are.
If you ever want a holiday, you could kind of multitask it. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Well, only if I get to go and visit a pub and maybe go visit where they filmed The Quiet Man with John Wayne. Maybe that's something I'd like to. What in Ireland would you have me do? What place would you have me visit? What would you have me experience?
Well, I don't know what you're into. I did a degree in archaeology, so my top spots would be all the sort of archaeological sites. The Rock of Cashel is amazing. I mean, it's not just architecture, but like prehistoric burial tombs and monolithic sort of your megalithic statues, all the old kind of heritage sites. It's just brilliant.
If I have the opportunity to come, I will make the trip. I can't imagine that it's someone that's a pretty pricey plane ticket. But if we were to find an opportunity to go, I'm sure we'd make it happen. So keep that candle burning in the window, okay?
Yeah, well, just get in contact with Atheist Ireland. If you ever think of coming over, they'll set you up. They'll sort you out.
That's a date. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks a million for this. I'm going to go now. I have to put my kids to bed.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
Let's see. I've got Andrew. Andrew, thanks for being a part of the program. What's going on, man?
Hey, Seth. Thanks for hosting.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. What's up?
I have a rant that I would like to go on the podium for a minute here.
Go ahead.
This is my idea for another, atheism YouTube next generation. So, I'm a big fan of the non-stamp collectors, the dark matters, and my personal favorite of yours is the they're all still here, all of them. But anyway, that's all good stuff. But the target audience for those videos is atheists. I mean, there might be the occasional person who's kind of in the middle, and maybe they kind of say, yeah, this is pretty silly, and they move over to one side. But really, the target audience for that is atheists. So my idea is I want to target Christians, even fundamentalist Christians, even just no matter where they are in their belief. This is a channel or maybe a series of blog posts or both where maybe I do this, maybe I don't have the talent for it, but the video creator poses as a Christian. And it's not so much really even a lie. Like, the goal that you're doing is you're trying to bring people just a little closer to reason. You don't have to get them to reject God. You just want them to be a little more reasonable. That's the whole goal of the whole thing. I have this model of the human brain as it relates to belief. And the way I imagine it is that we have this like mesh of interlaced threads of belief. And when we get a new thread and we need to put it in our brain, well, if the thread disagrees with the mesh, we have two choices. We can unravel our entire belief system to make that new piece of information work, or we can just toss out that new piece of information because it's probably bogus. We all do this. And if a Christian gets the thread that says God doesn't exist, they try to plug it into their brain, but their brain's a big mesh that has all these miracles and beliefs and their family and everything. It's like, that's not true. This doesn't work at all, and they toss it out. It's not that you're not getting anywhere with that sort of information. So I want to start by just very gently unraveling and rewiring that mesh to just be more reasonable overall and just move them a little closer towards reason.
What is that, a Socratic thing? Is it questions? Is it what's your angle that causes them to get into that state where the unraveling happens?
Yeah, so that's tricky, but the strategy that I have is don't challenge them too much. Just only challenge them as little as possible, but just a little challenge. So, for example, one of the first maybe videos or posts would be that just try to convince Christians that soulmates don't exist, right? And even you can come at it from a God perspective, like, God made all these people out there for you, and not necessarily only one of them is the answer. You can make it work with plenty of people. And just one by one, kind of just attack these superstitions that Christians have until what you're left with is a Christian who has only the superstitious belief about God and Jesus and not really about all these other things. And then as they progress along the line, maybe you try to convince them, like, God's not really against evolution. Maybe the story of Genesis was figurative. So you just try to move, like, there's different levels of Christians, and some of them are more progressive and less progressive. And instead of trying to get them to go straight from your entire belief system's wrong, you need to reject God, you can just kind of convince them to say, hey, maybe the book of Genesis is figurative, and maybe you don't have to believe in the young earth, and maybe you don't have to hate gay people. God's okay with gay people. You just kind of move them along a little bit. So this is I just wanted to rant and share my idea for this YouTube series with you.
I think much of what's produced inside the atheist movement is atheism focused. It's targeted to the non-believer. But I also think that there are many people in the periphery who are not atheists who are watching, and several of those people who have been on the fence, maybe going through struggles in their own lives, have seen the direct challenge to religion, have seen the firebrand type stuff, and it has been instrumental in them changing their minds. I think you're probably talking about someone who is a closed system, someone who is already kind of hunkered down, locked down, and you're wanting to create an open window where they'll begin to entertain ideas that aren't part of their established religious worldview. And I like the idea of of the death by 1,000 cuts, starting small, starting with one and then moving to the next one. I'm a big fan of questions. I'm a big fan of empathy and compassion. I don't think we start by telling the religious how stupid they are, because there are a lot of really smart religious people. I think people come to belief for a host of reasons, and we have to see it in 3 dimensions. I don't know. It's something for us to chew on. I appreciate the call very much. Is it Luffy? What do I call you?
It's Luffy Rules 09. That's actually my YouTube channel name.
Okay.
Since YouTube and Google kind of meshed together.
What do I call you?
Charles.
Hey, what's going on, Charles?
Going good. I am a huge fan of yours.
Thank you.
I listen to your show every week, and you have been very instrumental in my journey from open-minded fundamentalist to atheist. It was a long journey. I grew up in a non-denominational conservative household, and
what is that? Like Assembly of God kind of thing?
Kinda, sorta. I'm still not entirely sure, but it does have that Pentecostal sensibility. Like you have the, tambourine, praise and worship, and the, spiritual gifts thing.
Okay.
But my family switched to another church, which is a lot more mainline. Like it's more like a modern mainstream church. Like it's still conservative and still holds to the basic Christian teachings, but it's not as radical as the one we used to go to. It's like Watermark, if you're familiar with that.
So, all right, you were a fundamentalist, meaning what? You believed in a literal Bible kind of thing?
Yeah, I believed that Jesus Christ died on the cross for my sins and all that. But ever since I went to college and used the internet, my journey started when one of my friends told me he was an atheist, and I was a little heartbroken by that. And I tried to read apologetics and try to reason him out of it, but it didn't seem to work.
This is the journey that Matt Dillahunty himself took when his college roommate was a believer or was an atheist, and Dillahunty was going to try to talk him out of it. And the more research he did, the more he realized his roommate was right.
Yes, and even then, I actually started off as a progressive Christian. Like, I started becoming more empathetic to LGBT teens. Like, you hear stories about kids who kill themselves because their parents and friends don't accept them. I became more empathetic of that, and I watched some, gay-friendly Christians like cite Bible quotes and interpretations that prove that it's not anti-gay. And then, I started to shift my views towards evolution and that I don't have to believe that the Bible is 100% inerrant. Like, I started listening to liberal Christians and scholars.
Yeah, I call this the retreat position, right? The Bible is true. Okay, now the Bible is partially true. Some of it's for yesterday, some of it's for today, some of it's literal, some of it's metaphor. You know what? I believe in Jesus, but I don't believe in the Bible. Now I believe in the look at the pretty rainbows Jesus. Now I believe in, not just Jesus, but all kinds of deities. Well, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. And then you end up over here in this weird deistic membrane where most people kind of hang out. And some people actually summon the courage to take the next steps, which is to say, hey, maybe it's all a bunch of crap, Is that what happened? Is that an accurate way of portraying kind of what happened to you?
Sort of, kind of. Like, I didn't become a deist, after, that journey. I sort of became a universalist beforehand, and then I became agnostic, which I thought was going to be my default position, but after I joined a Secular Student Alliance Club my senior year, and I think hanging around with them kind of shifted.
How many people have gone off to college and returned skeptics of the religious belief they were raised in? I hear this story all the time, and it's terrifying to the parents, right? We're sending little Timmy off to college. I hope he doesn't become a secular humanist kind of thing.
Well, not unless if you're sent to a private Christian school. But then again, I've heard of this story about a atheist who did attend a Christian school, and he came out to his campus. So, I guess it doesn't really matter where you go.
Wait. He was at a Christian university or a high school?
A university.
And he declared himself openly atheist to what, an instructor or students?
I don't remember. I read an article on Patheos.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look it up because I would think there might be consequences for this particular student.
Yeah, I mean, I think he got some kind of, probation or something. I don't know, but I think it's encouraging to show that even private Christian organizations are not safe from skepticism.
I'm a former Christian broadcaster, right? And I am stunned by how many people that I knew in the business back then, who I still cross paths with today. And the reason we cross paths is that they have sent me correspondence that says, I'm still in Christian broadcasting, but I'm actually an atheist. I don't have any other place to go. There are no other radio opportunities opening up. I'm doing what I can, but I think it's all a bunch of crap. And they are finding ways, whether it's via a pseudonym on Twitter or something else, to be able to vent and to challenge and to speak their minds while they're trying to navigate themselves out of this religious career that they've woven themselves so deeply into.
Going back to the whole university thing, I don't know if you saw Bernie Sanders' speech at Liberty University.
I did.
Remember when he talked about, he mentions like abortion rights, women's rights, and gay rights. At each statement, you heard a loud cheer, from the audience. And it's like, oh my God, those students at the most conservative school in the country are actually okay with this. That means we're like in a paradigm shift.
Well, some were. I mean, it's Liberty University. Did you see Sarah Palin's speech at Liberty? I can't listen to it all at one time.
No.
The tenor of her voice and the delivery of her words make it impossible for me to hang in there more than about 6 minutes consecutively. But
punch myself in the face.
She's speaking to Liberty, and she's talking about, essentially she's playing the religious persecution card. We're under attack by those evil atheists, kind of thing. And I just find myself, and the Liberty University crowd just lapped it up. So I'm not quite prepared to declare all of them on the cusp of progressive thinking quite yet. But the fact that he did receive some positive response, I think, is definitely, and what's another encouraging thing about Sanders is that he was a little bit coy, but not pandering on the issue of God. He was asked about his own belief in God or what have you, and he essentially came back and said, I think we need to focus on us. And I just thought, it's pretty ballsy for somebody in the political arena in such a religious climate to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So, I appreciate anything else you want to say before I move on?
Oh, yes. One more thing. Recently, I came out to my family as atheists, and they accepted me, but they're still kind of in that phase of, I rejected Jesus, and it breaks my heart that you did that sort of thing. But they still support me. They still send me to college, and, they're not, like, kicking me out or anything. They're just in that sort of, I love you, but I'm sad that you don't believe what we believe.
I'm sad that you're not like me. That's what they're saying.
Heck, when they dropped me off here at SCAD, oh yeah, I go to SCAD, Savannah, Georgia. It's an art school. I'm studying to be an animator. But as soon as they're about to leave to go back home, she actually made me pray with them, and they said, please send your angels to protect me and find a way to reveal yourself to him. I didn't say anything because I didn't want them to leave on a bad note, but
I get it. You're playing a long game. You're choosing your battles, and I respect that. But honestly, this is going to reveal how much actual trust they have in Jesus. Like, I'm going through kind of a similar thing and have for a decade with my own family. My parents were charged to train up a child in the way that they should go, and here I am as host of one of the most popular atheist radio shows in the world, and it's a scandal in my family that this is happening. He's written atheist books. He's terrible. And what's interesting is, while they're busy telling me about how certain they are that Jesus is powerful enough to change my mind and convince me that Christ is real and that the Bible is true, they're still at the same time all paranoid and weird and in tears and flipped out and angry and worked up into a total lather, which betrays their lack of faith in Jesus' ability to prove Jesus to me. Have you prayed on my behalf? Yes. Do you believe in the power of prayer? Yes. Do you believe that Jesus can reveal himself to me? Yes. Well, congratulations. The burden is now totally off of you. You can relax. You can chill. You know, if you genuinely believe in the power of Christ, then sit back and watch the fireworks because it's going to be amazing. And the fact that they can't rest tells me that they secretly don't believe Jesus is up to the task.
Yeah, I think that's the same attitude Christians have whenever there's like a tragic event or a massacre. They say, pray for, Paris, pray for this. Yeah. Instead of actually doing something about it.
Yeah, I'm writing a speech on this very subject because I've got some loved ones going through just some critical medical treatment right now, and the Facebook page is prayers, praying, Jesus, prayer, Jesus, prayers. And while this person is receiving trained, expert medical care by professionals in the field who have dedicated their lives to helping save the lives of others, not one word of gratitude or acknowledgement has been given about the doctors, the nurses, the hospital support staff, the scientists who helped to make the technology possible that has rescued them in this moment of crisis. Jesus did not part the skies and heal them, but they're thanking Jesus because the surgeon did. It makes me crazy. So I'm putting together a speech along those lines. It'll come out in a few months. I'll stick it on YouTube. Thanks so much for being a part of the broadcast, my friend. Thanks, Charles. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope to meet you in person one day.
Be an honor. Be an honor. Let's do a couple more real fast. I put Sergio on mute, I think, because we had a microphone problem. Let me see if I can unmute you, my friend. Sergio, I got you on the line.
I'm on the line right now.
What's going on?
How you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for calling.
First time. I've been listening to you for many years.
Very kind. Thank you.
So I have one question for you. It's kind of political. You don't have to answer if you're not comfortable. What's your position on what's your position on Edward Snowden being a traitor or a hero? I think he's a hero because he exposed something that show that how they're surveilling us, how they're controlling every part of our behavior. How, if you read any of the Snowden files, you'll find information that's going to scare you because it shows you that they had a lot of bad things going on. There's a lot of corruption in the government, and they're trying to control us. And it might sound like a conspiracy theory, but you can find out for yourself, and you'll see that I'm not lying or exaggerating.
No, I understand what you're saying. I go back and forth on Snowden. Part of me understands the need for secrecy. If everyone knows everything, that means the enemy knows, that kind of thing. I understand that. But I also don't completely trust the NSA. I don't trust that all of the information, the fact that we are living in an age when everything we say and do and everything we browse and everything we whisper on a telephone, is being a matter of record kept who knows where. Do I think there's technology that exists that I don't know about? Yes. Do I think that's conspiratorial thinking? No, I think it's just common sense. Of course we don't know everything that they know about us. Of course we're in the dark, and we become so reliant on the technology that's allowing it that we're hesitant to give up the ease with which we live our lives, and so we're surrendering. I'm guilty, right? Google owns me. I've got a Google account here and a Google this and a Google Gmail, and Google probably has a profile. They probably recreated me digitally in a lab somewhere. Who knows? And do I think that the importance of the whistleblower can be understated? No, I think that it's very possible, although I don't know for sure, and I lean to those who know more than I do. I think it's very possible that Snowden saw abuses, privacy abuses, human rights abuses. He saw an encroachment of an organization that largely runs in many instances unchecked, and said, I want to sound the alarm, and paid a measure of a price for that, and continues to do so. I think, there's a lot I don't know, but I don't see him as the villain in the story yet anyway.
Well, I think the war on drugs, for example, was the perfect example of how it's just a war on people. The government is always trying to control our behavior. If we try to get you together, they'll try to separate somehow. You might think that I'm being crazy, but you can search for yourself.
I'm sorry. The government wants human beings to not get together. In what capacity?
We rebel. Revolution is not convenient, so they have to keep us brainwashed and thinking that we're living free when our freedom is limited.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll chew on that. I mean, I myself lean to greater minds than I have on the issue. I myself lean on. I lean on the technology that might one day enslave me. I'm very, very well aware that this may be, I may be nurturing and feeding the beast that devours me one day. I don't know. The jury's still out. I'm going to move on to Krista. Krista, thanks for calling the show. What's going on with you?
Not too much. How are you doing?
I'm excellent. Thanks for being a part of the show. What's going on?
Well, I've watched a few of your YouTube videos, and I find them very interesting. And
thank you. I think.
Yeah, really good. Really good stuff.
Well, interesting in many cases is, I think they're interesting in a sad, tragic kind of way. But it depends on who's making the statement. What's going on? What do you think?
Well, I was raised the same way in a very closed Christian lifestyle, and I was homeschooled and all that. So my story is very similar. So, and now I'm agnostic, atheist, basically. So,
what's your take on homeschooling? I mean, are you an opponent to it outright, or only religiously, or what do you think?
I don't think I'm anti-homeschooling. I think that it's a personal choice, but I don't know. I think it should be left up to the person.
Would you homeschool would you create an environment where you were the child's instructor?
No.
Okay. No.
From my experiences, no.
All right.
But well, I don't think there should be a law saying that you can't, but I myself, I wouldn't.
I was homeschooled for 4 months, and it was a cocoon of essentially religious isolation. But I think there are circumstances where if it's done correctly, it can be just fine. So many people are, I think, quick to generalize all homeschoolers. And once you begin to say the word all, I think you've already sort of stepped into dangerous territory. There are some instances where people have pulled it off. But in the cases of isolating children for religious reasons, I'm an absolute opponent of it. I think
yes, I am too.
Child abuse in many ways.
As well.
Anything else you want to talk about?
No, that's about it.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, Krista. Take care.
You too. See you later.
Let's do a couple more real fast. I've got Cameron. Thanks for waiting. What's going on, Cameron?
Hey. Well, I've been enjoying listening to your show. It's been really helpful to me.
Thank you.
18 years ago, I was 15, started dating my husband. He killed himself 3 years ago. And his family believes that he's in heaven as the good Bible-fearing Christian that they raised him as. And I love his family, but it's this really horrible thing to have to pretend that he was a Christian when, in fact, we had lots of discussions, and he and I were on the same page about the whole no God thing. So it's just been really hard.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I think good people struggle with what to say when they hear that, my husband killed himself, a loved one, you've gone through a tragedy.
And I get we'll see him again in heaven and we're praying for you. And I'm like, well, according to your beliefs, you're not going to see him in heaven. He's in hell. But I don't believe in either of those things. But I don't believe I'll ever see him again. If I tell them the truth, I've crushed their beliefs of being able to be with him in eternity.
Well, and you can tell me where the boundaries are here. I'm just talking, all right? So I don't want to get to a place at any point where you are uncomfortable. But are they sort of selling the heaven narrative as a way to deal with something that otherwise they wouldn't be able to deal with? Or is this sort of are they trying to convince you or sell you on a religious belief that you do not have that they do?
They have the belief, and I don't. I respected his decision to just be ambiguous with his family. They knew we didn't go to church. We were married by a Unitarian Universalist minister, and we had the most generic Bible reading ever, just to like pat his parents on the head at our wedding. But
there were probably whispers as they walked into the Unitarian church, huh?
Oh, well, we got married outside. Yeah, I think there's some denial on their end, but I don't want to start the conversation with them because it ends with their hearts broken.
Yeah.
Mine's already broken, so I don't figure I'll just...
Well, if they have constructed a mechanism to cope, and it's something that they've done personally, I don't think the move is to make that a soapbox. If they are trying to, in some way, emotionally blackmail you using the death of your husband, that's, I think, a crossing of boundaries, and you have every right to say, hey, wait a minute, you don't get to do that.
Well, it's hard to be honest about myself without leading them to the questions that they don't want to start thinking about their son or their nephew or their brother. So that's the thing, is I try to tell them to stop, but I can't get into details with them. I mean, I still love them, but it makes it basically impossible to have a close relationship with them anymore. And that's really hard for me. I mean, over half my life, these people have been my family.
May I ask how you're doing? You doing all right?
I was the one that was supposed to be screwed up and depressed, not him. I'm hanging in there. Every year I say, maybe I'll try and make it, and so far I've made it 3. So. Well,
I'm sort of at a loss for words, but at the same time, I want to do my best to encourage you. I think when people deal with tragedy in the real world without selling themselves the story of the happy ending, that it would be nice if we all got together and we joined mom and dad and husband and wife, siblings, the kids, the family dog, everybody went to Xanadu. I understand the attraction of those types of stories, but I also understand that many people who choose to deal with tragedy in the real world can find their way through, and they can sort of reignite their passion for living and extract joy out of the moments and see how precious and brief this blip is on planet Earth, and make the most of the time they have left. Sort of, I don't know that you ever really get over it, but I think in many ways you can at least move to the next chapter and make that chapter a better, more positive one, a more constructive one that's certainly brighter. And that would be my hope for you. I hope you're finding some joy in your life. You're surrounded by people who do get you and who understand you and support you and love you for who you are. And I hope you're reminded that, we're, despite all of our challenges, despite the tragedies we face, we're alive in a time when so many others were never given the privilege. We have a few precious minutes on the earth, and we should celebrate them whenever we can. And I hope you find those moments in your own journey, okay?
Yeah, I mean, feeling a part of this community has helped me a lot with not being able to be so much out in the physical world. But I do like you want a physicist to speak at your funeral. I think the sentiment on that is amazing. Every photon that bounced off of his face into my retina, has changed the neurotransmitters and the neurons in my brain forever. So.
When you realize you're made of stardust and you will be again, I guess there is a kind of poetry to that, And for those who haven't read I Want a Physicist to Speak at My Funeral, I think you can easily Google search it and find it. It's pretty amazing stuff. So.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Cameron, you take care of yourself, okay?
I'll try.
All right, take care. Let's see, I've got one more I'm going to do real fast before we call it a show. Reed has been most patient. Reed, what's going on?
Hey, Seth. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm excellent. What's going on with you?
Not much. But I wanted to talk about. Remember this episode you had last year called "Can I Talk You Out of Your Faith" with Peter Boghossian and Anthony Magnabosco?
Yeah, terrific stuff, I thought.
Yeah, I'm super interested in that topic of street epistemology, and I just wanted to maybe give a recommendation to your listeners if they're still interested in that topic to maybe practice street epistemology online. There's a great place to do it. It's on blab.im. It's a website kind of like this, Google Hangouts. You can have 4 people video chatting at the same time, then like a text chat on the side. And I've been on there for the past few months practicing street epistemology with other friends that I've made on the site.
Now, what do you mean by practice? Is someone sort of portraying a believer, and then or are they legitimately believers who come to be a part of the conversation?
No, it's legitimate believers. It's an open, like kind of public hangout type deal. You can host a blab, as they're called,
okay.
And you put a title up, and people go to the website Blab, and they see all the different blabs, that are open, that are live. People come in, they chat about whatever they want to talk about. And for us, we do kind of these street epistemology blabs where we kind of talk respectively with people about what they believe and why they believe it. And it's just a really great thing. And if anybody's interested in doing something like that, we'd love to have them over there at Blab.
For those who are curious, who have no idea what we're talking about, the show aired last fall. It's called, and you can find it on Blog Talk Radio or on iTunes. It's called "Can I Talk You Out of Your Faith?" It essentially is based on Peter Boghossian's book, A Manual for Creating Atheist. Anthony Magnabosco is a YouTube host who actually goes out and implements this stuff. It's a Socratic method where you lead with questions. You're not telling people you're wrong. You say, demonstrate to me how you're right. I have questions. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. And the more they have ownership of the process, the more they begin to have to defend what they already believe. Many times the seeds of doubt are planted, doubt being a good thing in the context of causing us to evaluate, well, is this true? Does this have merit? And we have seen examples of people who have been influenced via the Socratic method and have sort of walked away from superstition and embraced a more rational life. And so I appreciate the heads up on that. I encourage our people to go Blab. It should be a lot of fun. I appreciate you telling us about it. All right, my friend?
Sure thing. Thanks a lot.
All right, take it easy. I want to say thanks to everybody for being a part of the broadcast, kind of this impromptu video hangout, radio/video show. And again, for the radio listeners, I will have the video link in the description box of this broadcast. I'll see you back here next Tuesday night, and we'll do it all over again on the Thinking Atheist radio broadcast. Take care.